Hello, everyone. Elliott will be joining me shortly. And we are going live to talk about this week's episode, which will drop tomorrow. And it is Elliott's, and here he is. Yay. There we go. That's not what I wanted to do. Go live. There we go. Elliott is in. And he is now invited. And I am actually in. Hello.
There we go. I got
Can you
it.
hear me okay?
I can hear you good.
Good. All right. Well, we're going to get to look at your chin.
That's all right. I can't really hold it up better.
I know. We probably need to get you some sort of setup so that you can, in these kinds. I mean, you live in the Chicago suburbs.
There you go. I can.
Oh, that's better.
I can hold it up a little bit since I can drive with one hand here.
All right. Well, hello to Dover Doll. I have not seen you in a hot minute. So great that you guys could join us, all of you, and certainly those who have been part of the community for a while. It is really nice to be doing these lives on the regular again, getting back into a groove with my co-host, Pastor Elliott Anderson. It's Elliott, I was thinking about how, like, when we were kids and I was just like your like annoying little sister and you were like my super cool big brother, like if I'd known then that we'd be doing like a partnership like this, I would have been like, oh my gosh, how cool.
Well, I appreciate that side of the equation because I'm sure there's times you're just wanting to get away from me. But yes, it is fun to mix and match temperament, personality, gifting, skills, and sibling authentic love.
You gotta go with authenticity or authentic. Those are your choices.
Either way. Just go either way.
All right. Well, so tomorrow drops the final in our love language series. And I want to say on behalf of Elliott and me, thank you so much for the feedback. The love languages are just something that everyone can connect with. It's such a simple, but I will say simple but profound model that we know personally has literally saved marriages. And certainly, as we talked to throughout the series, for those single folks out there, the more that we understand our love language, the more that we can know and anticipate, and even when we're dating, get a sense of, is this going to be a fit for me or not? So we want to thank you so much for the lovely feedback. We know that from what we've heard from you guys reaching out via email and DM that the series has been helpful and important for you, and that it means a lot to us to get that feedback. So thank you. And we wanted to wrap up the series with a couple more love languages, with all due respect to Dr. Chapman and his 5 that are certainly the umbrella. And Elliott's metaphor that for those of you guys who are going to listen tomorrow, which I hope is all of you, please, is that these are the condiments of the love language sandwich. So without telling the whole podcast episode, Elliott, what are kind of some of the things that you think would be important for people to start to understand so they can get ready for tomorrow?
Yeah, since we talked about, in particular, words of affirmation and physical touch being the outer slices of the bread, and acts of service and gifts and quality time being the meat or the lettuce, all the things in the middle. In my 30 years of work with couples, I've seen these 2 other love languages, the love condiments, what I'm calling them, be almost as important on their own separately, but even more so as fluidity, like a conduit between the other love languages, and that is challenge and presentation.
Yeah, and when I listened, obviously today, Dan and I listened on the way down. And when you first said challenge, before I had a chance to listen, I was just like, I don't see challenge being my love language because I don't like people coming at me, right? I mean, I'm very much the person that I can have ears to hear, but you can't come at me. You kind of got to sneak in the side door. You got to be gentle with me. Probably because you and Warren just kind of beat me up so much emotionally for the first 18 years of my life that when someone comes at me just hard, like, this is the way it is, or you needed this, I'm like,
Well, that might be true, but your husband has a strong challenge love language.
But
I can think of one very specific moment when you called me from a restaurant because he had challenged you right there on the spot to be exclusive with him or move on. That is a man who knows how to use
Yeah.
the challenge love language.
That, that is very true. And honestly, that is a story we should share at another time, because I mean, I'm totally open to sharing that, because I think what I also think about our journeys, our love journeys, having been so different. I was thinking about today, or actually yesterday too. I was just thinking about how like God really uniquely prepared us to be able to have a partnership like this and collab in this way, because for someone who's like 42 and like I'm single and Pastor Elliott got married at 22, certainly you have much to offer them, but they might also be like, well, wait a minute, but Karen gets it because she was there. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice that, so for those who got married early and maybe had struggles that Dan and I never had because we were more mature, frankly, in our age, because we got married in our 40s, then you have something to offer those folks who are dealing with the challenges of early marriage. So Laurel says, I'd like to hear that story, Karen. Think it could help some of us. I mean, we can just say it now. I guess there's no
All
point
right,
in saving it.
that'll be good because I'm home, and give me 30 seconds to get in my office.
Okay. All right. So I'll try to do the Cliff Notes edition of this. You might need to mute, dude. I'm not telling this story with all your background.
Hold on.
And then Twinkie's gonna lose her mind, and then my dogs are gonna bark. Because okay, so everyone, you guys, we're in a hotel because I'm traveling with Dan for his work, and it's a hotel, and we brought the puppers. So there's Lally, and there's Copper, and then yeah, hi, you heard your name, didn't you? And then Cousin Twink, and if Cousin Twink loses her mind, actually, I think the earbuds will keep our dogs from hearing. And also, this is a good time to remind everyone, if you have a question, we're totally doing this. Obviously, it's a true live. This is meant to be interactive. This is not just Elliott and me like, yeah. We want to hear what's on your heart right now. We want to hear anything. It doesn't have to be love language related. If there's anything that we can address that would be supportive for you, please put a little question. We can see your comments a little bit, but the easiest way is to put it in that little question bubble. Like what I'm going to press right now. We did get a couple questions from prior. This is funny, Elliott. One of the questions, I will show it on the screen. Who is cooler, Karen or Elliott?
Well, I think there's different styles of cool, so maybe we each have our own way.
I mean, oh, that's another story for another day too. I mean, you were so much cooler than me for a long time, but then I think I kind of upped my game.
Well, I got old faster than you did, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, it gets back to what we were talking about. I was able to get a little cooler because I was like living my Chicago single life.
Yeah, you had city cool.
I got city cool. I know you got suburban and you got grown.
Right.
So that's that answer. Yes. Appreciate that question coming in. It's hilarious. No, so the short story is that when Dan and I met in August, we were both seeing other people, which is, as my community knows, our community knows, is something we recommend until it would have been too soon. Plus he had just gotten divorced. So I was actually very glad that I didn't know his other, it wasn't like date 3, like, are you seeing anyone else? I mean, that just wasn't my style. I'm sorry I made that voice. That was really disrespectful to someone who might want to ask that question. I didn't, but our community knows that we talk about pacing. And one of the things that really helps empower women is that we don't divulge too much information about what we're doing when we're not with the person we're seeing. Because if we're seeing someone else, it's not their business until he's manned up and asked us to be exclusive. So Dan was seeing other people. So August, we meet end of August, and then we're seeing other people throughout the fall. And not, again, the conversation of what we were doing with other potential people we might be seeing it just never came up until January, when Dan just realized that the other people he was seeing, he wasn't falling for the way he was falling for me. And so he took me out to dinner and for my birthday, and he wasn't supposed to be in town, but then his travel plans changed for business, so he was in town. So it was kind of like the whole thing was kind of impromptu. And yeah, before the first course comes, he's like, I have been thinking a lot about us. And so right away I'm like, because And my single ladies, you guys will understand this. Like, I was 41. It was my 41st birthday. And as much as I was really falling hard for Dan, every time I'd fallen for someone before, what had happened? Broken heart, right? It never worked out. And whether I broke up with them or called off a wedding or whether they broke up with me, either way, every time I let my heart be vulnerable enough to fall in love with someone, I got broken hearted. Now, I'm not trying to be like, woe is me. I just mean that I was probably more protective and avoidant at this point and jaded than I realized. So he's like, the thing of course I'm falling for this guy. I want him to want to be exclusive with me, but I'm like, ah. And so, and also nervous about, like, he's recently divorced. Is it too soon? Am I the rebound girl? And he's got kids, and whoa, everyone hates stepmoms, so this is going to be fun. You know, so there was just some realities that I think kept me from even letting my heart go as much. And so then he's like, I've had some hard conversations this week. And I was like, regarding, and he's like, I was seeing someone else and we had developed a connection, but I let her know that I was falling for you and that I couldn't see her anymore. And he's like, are you seeing anyone else? And don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. So I go, yes. And I could see him going like, you know, kind of like not that dramatic, but ish. And so I was like, yes, I am. And he's like, oh, well, I didn't really expect that. But he's like, I would like it if you and I would be exclusive. And said something along those lines. I would like to date you exclusively, and I hope you would like to date me exclusively as well. So then my panic, I would go, oh, like, oh my gosh, now it's getting real. So I said, I just need a couple minutes. And I went to the restroom and called you. Huh?
It was so great because remember what I said?
No, because I just dissociated. You know how I do.
I said, go say yes and get right back out there. I'm like, that was the kind of man I thought you needed. And you'd already told me enough about him that I was pretty open and accepting to what he's going through. I understood it. But yeah, that challenge, I thought that challenge perspective of his athletic background, his business success, that he could match your firepower as a brilliant, beautiful, gifted woman. And I'm like, hey, splash some water in your face, get right back out there and say yes, let's go. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, you and Warren and I had driven down to Cincy for some unknown reason. I don't know how we all ended up driving home for Christmas at the same time. Or it was something, maybe Thanksgiving, I can't remember. And I told you guys, I was like, I think I can marry this guy.
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah. And then at Christmas, because you knew I was dating someone else, you were on me. You're like, you need to make a decision.
I know.
You need to figure. You were really on me. And I was like, Elliott, I'm not rushing anything. I'm gathering information. I'm figuring out who's the best fit. And you were like, no, you need to stop juggling.
Because I also have a strong challenge love language. So
I know.
Yeah, that was challenging you as well. But yeah, everything about him I liked. And I remember just when he came down for you with Dad that one time was really, that's one of those other side languages I didn't talk about this time. I could do another time. Sacrifice, how the love language of sacrifice is really a pretty cool connector. And he showed a massive one early. I'm like, oh, that's pretty significant.
Yeah. So to fill anyone in, I've shared this on podcast episodes when I've been interviewed, but I don't know I've probably shared it once or twice on Love and Life, but what happened there with Elliott's referring to, which was really, and that was huge for me. I think that's when I really knew, like, I knew I was starting to fall for him. Then I was like, I'm falling in love with this guy because his character was so evident there. So he had asked me a couple weeks before, like early December. And again, I didn't know if he was dating anyone else at this point or not. But he asked me if I wanted to go out for New Year's, which was nice, a couple weeks before New Year's. And I said, yeah, thank you so much, but I'm going to be in Cincinnati for New Year's because backstory on us, every year our family, because my father was a jazz musician, Elliott's a drummer, our brother Warren is a bass player, and I'm a vocalist, so we would always do gigs together, New Year's gigs. So it's a fun time to gig out. and we'd just do jazz standards like Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, that kind of stuff. And because my father's illness, he had vascular dementia, had progressed to the point where he couldn't remember the piano songs, the songs on the piano. So songs he'd played since he was like 12 years old. So our whole family's grieving this loss of our father and of our traditions and how we bonded musically as a family. So you guys were going to grieve in the way that you were. So neither you nor Warren was going to be in Cincy. And I felt like I want mom and dad to have someone there. And so that's just how I felt like I wanted to grieve this time, was to be present with them and love on them. And so I told Dan, and I explained, this was the first time I shared with him about dad's vascular dementia as well. And so I did tear up a little bit. That was the first time I ever teared up in front of him. Now he's probably like, okay, waterworks over here. But it was a new thing at the time. And I shared that with him. And I think it was just really a beautiful moment for us and as a couple, and building our emotional intimacy, because he looked at me and he goes, oh, I'm probably going to get emotional. He looked at me, he's like, well, if you wouldn't mind the company, I'd love to come down to Cincinnati, and I'll take your parents out to dinner, and maybe they're in their 70s, so probably they'd be ready to go to bed, and you and I could just go and ring in the new year with a glass of champagne somewhere. And I was like, because my experience with men in the past, I'm not trying to make a blanket statement, but I anticipate he'd do something like, your parents will be fine. They got each other. Just stay in Chicago. I'm going to take you out in the town. We'll go Michigan Avenue. We'll do some fancy hotel. I anticipate him to try to twist my arm to get me to do what he wanted to do. And instead he did that sacrificial thing, like you said, Elliott, which was such a loving gesture. Like, no, honoring my heart to want to grieve and be with my parents, to be supportive and to love on them, honoring my heart in that way, and then going, but I want to see you, so let me be with you, if that's okay. Yeah. It was just like, really huge. I was like, this guy. No, that's when I literally was like, I'm in love with this man. Yeah. Who does this? There's a guy out there who does this.
You're like, I'm all game from this point on, because I'm just going to hold on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then I met after, and the way he was with mom and dad was so wonderful. And of course, mom and dad were like, after they met him, they're like, this is the first boy you've brought home that we can say, boy, he's 46 or whatever he was. This is the first boy you've brought home, or maybe mom said young man, that he's our favorite ever. And he's such a gentleman, and we love his kindness and his warmth. And so, yeah. So, and we're getting some lovely little comments here. Someone said, gal living Blue Noser life. Yeah, that would seal it for me. Very considerate it was. Dover Doll's giving us a go, Dan. Laurel's saying, thank you for sharing this with us, Karen. You know what? I think this is what Alive is about. That, we just stumble into a conversation that who knows, but if it's something that feels supportive and inspiring, it's so great to share that story. I love that story. Honestly, that's what I want for everyone. I want everyone to have that moment where you're like, wow, I didn't even know I could find someone who would cherish me and honor me and see me the way I'm being seen right now. That's our heart for all of you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it does also express, we started the story with expressing what that challenged love language looks like a little bit. And yeah, you guys were in a non-committed state.
Yeah.
But Dan was interested in moving it to the committed state. You weren't against it.
No.
And so he lovingly and graciously challenged you both. Let's take this up to the next consideration. And as I say in the podcast, let's give one little morsel away here, is it always starts with challenging yourself individually and your partner to be the best version of themselves. It's not about, oh, Aaron, you change. I want to challenge you to change to be better for me. It's no, what's the best version of you? It's self-actualization. It's Maslow. It's all those things we've learned about how do I become the best self. And in that process, we can become a better self for our partner as well. But it's all about individual first, and exhortation and encouragement, and what are your goals? Let me help serve you to get to the goals, things of that nature.
I love that. It's just being that cheerleader for them and trying to help them achieve their own goals. I wrote down a couple things about challenge, Elliott, from when I was listening this morning. Okay, so one thing that I don't think is giving away too much of our talk tomorrow, you said one of the main reasons people get divorced is boredom. And so this challenging, which I thought, because like I said earlier when I was teasing about, well, not really teasing, but just sharing that challenge in and of itself, that word, there's a lot of nuance there, which you really explicate in the episode. But like initially challenge, I just feel like I don't want to be with someone who's, riding my butt all the time and like on me all the time. Yeah. But you're talking about, and I think that's a really important point, when you're with someone where you're naturally challenging each other, and even if it's a more subtle, softer way, because that's how I like to be challenged, there's no boredom. Like, yeah. I mean, the last thing that would ever happen to you and Angie is boredom in your marriage. We don't
let it be for like a half a day, let alone like a week or a month. And right. I think if it helps the listeners and even helps you frame it, as I didn't tell you a whole lot about it before the episode, it was fun just kind of, I told you a little bit and then I just threw it out there just to let you listen. But growth is a big important piece of that. So it's challenging each other to grow. Yeah. And we know that things don't stay stagnant. They either grow or they diminish. And so that is very true in romantic, intimate relationships. And a lot of the recovery marriages I work with, Karen, are couples 11, 12, 13 years with young kids. And the children, as we all know, children will demand a lot. And it is easy to let the identity of the marriage become parenting. And that won't get it done. You've got to keep the priority on the married couple as one, and challenging each other graciously even within that. And again, we talked about the love languages, so challenge each other. Hey, I'm not getting much of your time right now. Right. Or hey, I love you so much, hon. I need some more physical touch. I know the kids are all over you, but I need some of that too. And I bless you with my words right now, my words of affirmation. And so that's why I call them condiments, because the main five are still the main five, but these two I think are the nuanced flow between all of them.
It really made sense when I listened, and you guys did an amazing job. It was fun for me to be like, this is our podcast and I'm not on it, which was awesome because Tim did such a nice job. And it was funny that he said something that I said one time when we were going back and forth. It wasn't the love language, it was some other episode where Tim's like, wait, I feel like I'm getting therapy here. But yeah, and Dover says motivating and encouraging, challenging can be framed more as motivation and encouragement. And so yeah, I love that. I do feel like you said, and I think it actually bears us having an entire episode on it, because we kind of touched on it, because of love languages, it's a theme throughout where the priorities can get misplaced oftentimes, especially. I mean, how is it when you've got 4 kids in diapers, 4 kids under the age of 2? Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I do. Although it's a blur, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and therefore, again, it helped in that way. The 10 years of infertility helped because we already knew each other really, really well and had gone through a lot of challenging identity changes because we're both so strong-willed and so passionate and intense and stubborn, which I love, and other marriages might not like that kind of intensity all the time. But so we really knew each other well enough so that when the babies came so quickly like that, and again, listeners don't know that story. That's a really long story, but essentially we had 10 years of infertility, finally adopted twin boys, and then immediately got pregnant twice. The first baby was 7 weeks early. So that was 3 babies in 9 months. Angie had an emergency C-section. She could have died. My baby could have died. And then boom, got pregnant again. So I was 0 for 1,000 and then 2 for 2. And then that baby came, and that baby was also an at-risk pregnancy. So then we had 4 babies in 2 years and 15 days. And so it was a celebration, but it was also extremely difficult and stressful.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I was vice president at that time. I suspended 23 people that semester. It was just, the whole thing was chaotic. And so knowing our love languages so well, we could really make sure Angie's top one is acts of service. And that's pretty easy for me because I'm a spaz. And so even when I had to leave early, get all the diapers ready, get the formulas ready, everything in place, help with laundry, that was an easy piece of it. But then she really needed those words of affirmation, which isn't always her strength. But in this particular season, are always what she needed. This particular season, she needed it because it was pretty overwhelming. You know, she's a structured, organized queen, but it was still pretty overwhelming. And so noticing that, recognizing that, and quickly giving that to her to help satisfy. And then we just had to reach out to the community and ask for lots of help.
Yeah.
Not only from family, but ladies in the church and ladies at school. We pretty much had help every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. CEO says, I have 3 under 5.
Hey,
So
so that's a little piece of it. And it's funny when I tell that to any mother, when I tell that story of our 4 kids under 2, every mother immediately says something like, "Oh my, God bless your wife." They never
for sure.
say, "Was that hard on you, Elliot?" Because even though I tried a lot, I think a mother recognizes what another mother had.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so presentation, let's talk about, move on from
That's the
challenge
second one. Yep.
to presentation. This is the second condiment. So you said something along the lines that uh, Dan and I have dramatic language when we present each other.
In a good way. That was a positive.
I know, but I know what you meant. And Siobhan, CEO is actually Siobhan. So
Okay.
getting the name right. Thank you for letting us know. And also, don't forget, if you have questions, anyone in the little question bubble, hit them there. We'll pull them up and we can address anything in real time. It doesn't have to be about love languages or condiments.
Comments, yeah. So, yeah, presentation, the whole aspect of once we're in a committed relationship, everything we do is a representation of our partner. And so how we present them in language and nonverbal, in touch, in affirmation, in time, all of it's represented. And think how big of a deal it is. I mentioned on the podcast when we go give a presentation somewhere. I mean, we're really trying to work on what we wear, what we say, how we coordinate. And we don't often think about that in the context of just everyday relationship. And so I said in a good way, like when you guys go to Dan's company parties or something, he's strolling in like you are the queen of Asia, right? And so you are feeling so loved and so cherished and so presented. And then you guys do use cute language sometimes. You're more dramatic in the language than he is. He'll call you babe or something or beautiful, but you'll give that extra dramatic flair. And that's wonderful. It's a wonderful presentation and connection to feel the honored, privileged position to be in a commitment together.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's twofold, if I'm hearing it correctly. It's honoring the fact that I represent him. I represent us. And that's just by virtue of once the two become one. So you are married, and now keeping that and being respectful of that I want to represent him in a way that honors him and shows love to him through the way that I represent him, even just when I'm going about my business. But secondly, when I introduce him to someone, or when if we're walking into my domains, do I hold his hand, or do I rush ahead of him and let him like trail after me? And those sorts of things would all be wrapped up in presentation.
Yeah. And just for that same example, so if you guys are going to a Christmas party for his work and you know he's going to do that and really treat you as a queen and everything, and then you showed up in jeans and a frumpy sweater, then you're not giving that presentation love back in the same language. Then you're speaking different language as a presentation, and that doesn't work. And so I give the example in the couples that are struggling that are in my office, even how one describes the marriage trouble is often in a presentation language the other is not happy about. So even those kind of presentations in the difficult or the challenging area, critical area, the same thing is true. And so we think about how much time we spend wanting to look right or speak right in these big public venues. And if we don't do the same with each other, even when we have a regular conversation about how Angie's school day is, am I giving her eye contact? Am I giving her words of affirmation? Am I giving her time and attention? Am I maybe giving her a touch or a hug if a kid threw a chair through a TV like a little 5-year-old did last year, right? How am I listening? And that's presenting myself as her partner the same time I'm operating those other love languages. That's why I call it more of a condiment along with the main 5, rather than me going to Dr. Chapman and saying, listen, because I'm a challenge guy, you got to make it 7 now. I like 5, but no, I don't think they are the same level. They're additional. They're conduits between.
Yeah. And they weave their way throughout all of them.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, even just like I said, I'm down here at Dan's work at his plant, and so he and another gentleman own the business. So when I walk in that office, I reflect him. I represent him. So he wants to be warm and nurturing as the owner. He wants people to want to work there. He wants them to feel valued and appreciated. He wants them to know that their work is meaningful. He loves that he's able to provide jobs for people, that putting food on their table, feeding their families. So when I walk in there, I'm mindful of that. I also want to be warm. I want to show them appreciation. I want them to know they are valued, that their work is meaningful, and that we appreciate it. So that would be another example. So in a real world example of what's going on literally tonight.
Yeah, and we were raised and trained by performers, right? Our father being a performer and our mother being a performer as a singer as well. Not quite the same frontman presence that dad had or dad had to have, or she didn't, but still, she knew how to perform. She knew how to carry herself when she did her solo.
And
she
a teacher.
Yeah, she walked
so
up,
she was up.
Mike, ready to go. And so that makes it easier for us because we were trained in it. And one of my favorite things to tell young couples in preparatory marriage or in early marriage issues is we have to train each other to love each other well. And we have to train each other in love languages, and presentation is a big deal. And we need to talk through, hey, how do you want me? I remember first time I went to the Iowa family Christmas. I mean, we were really in the farmland community here. And Angie said, I'll help you, because I had no fashion sense anyway. So she kind of picked out my outfit and everything. It wasn't over the top. It was just like nice blue jeans and a Tommy Hilfiger sweater.
Yeah.
But when I got there, every man there looked like they just got out of the fields.
Right. That's what I was wondering. Why didn't she have you in like a flannel maybe, or like a Carhartt?
Their whole family dynamic was that, hey, we are not beyond you or above you, but we are trying to project a holistic image. Yes, we're hard workers. Yes, we're blue collar, but we're also educated and we're doing both.
Okay.
And so the other guys gave me an immediate hard time, which was fun because I'm a challenge guy. So that worked out fine. Then I could razz back and forth with them. But it was a very specific event where, again, I asked her, how would you like me to present myself?
Right.
You know, so I presented as a little bit preppy, a college boy, college grad, but I also presented as a guy who can talk with anybody. And I could even tease them about knowing how their bossy cousin was, because Angie was the oldest cousin. So, you know, we could talk about that kind of stuff as well. So there was ways to do both. And that's just another aspect of conversing about these presentation issues.
So what would you say to someone who says, well, I got to be me, and that felt like that would feel to them like, you're not going to dress me, I gotta do me, and so that would not land well with them. Go ahead.
Totally understand. I'm stubborn and don't submit to anything easily either. But if you just got to be you, don't get in a committed relationship, because once you're in one, you got to be they, you got to be we, you got to be together. Okay. So yeah, you still have to have your own, you know, areas of individuality, areas of independence. And that's when I talk about negotiating. That's the whole name of the book. If I ever get it finished, Negotiating the Bonds of Love, to negotiate those things. Like say, hey, okay, if I'm going to this Iowa Christmas party as a preppy, then I want to spend some time tomorrow doing something else that we want to do, and talk through and exchange those loves and gifts to each other.
Well, and also it was authentic because you were a preppy. We all were preppy in the 80s. Yeah, we were, especially at prep school.
So it wasn't like completely outside of me.
Right. No, I mean, that tracked. Lolly is having some problems right now. Sweet girl. Well, and Dan's on his way home. So we had a question come in. Oh, hi, Twink. I love it, Twinkie. That's my baby. All right. We had a question come in. Let's see. When it's let me add it to, we can all see it. Okay. When it's a casual date, is it important to wear makeup, or is it safe and okay to be yourself and comfortable?
Great question. We're probably going to hit this from different angles. So you go first, because you wear makeup and I don't.
Well, so being that it's a date, and you guys know, I don't think I've like a little like lip gloss, not even like lipstick on right now. So, and no eye makeup, nothing on my face whatsoever. So I'm pretty low key with all that. For a date, I for sure would put on a little mascara and a little lip color. If we were hiking, no, I would not wear any makeup. So it would be based on the nature of the activity. But I do, for me personally, and I don't have strong feelings about this. Makeup is a very personal choice. You know, some women want to be dolled up head to toe, even if they're just running to pick up the dry cleaning. But for me, if it's a date and I'm someone I'm interested in, I want to demonstrate behaviorally, even through putting on just a little makeup, that that this matters to me, and I want to make a good impression, because of course I'm showing them how they're going to be able to present me in the future. So it's interesting, like the date is gathering information, and really it actually aligns with the whole presentation piece.
Yeah, and so I think I saw Dover Doll, is that what it says?
Yeah.
First date and first meeting. I'm starting my presentation love language immediately.
Yeah.
So if I'm natural, I don't like to wear any makeup ever, then I'm not going to put a bunch of makeup on for my first date, because that's not me.
Right.
But if I normally wear a decent amount, I'm probably going to wear a decent amount because that's what I normally do. So I'm going to try to be, that's when we're at the stage where we can be authentically me. Hey, this is me. This new guy wants somebody who's all dolled up all the time. That's not me. I'm not going to pretend. But, you know, if it goes through 5 or 6 dates, and then, you say, I don't normally wear a lot of makeup, but I'm going to wear a little bit more because he seems to like it, or he might find that presentation fine. And then once you get to the point of exclusivity, then you can talk through that much more specifically. So I hope we answered enough for him or her. I didn't know if it was him or her. I assumed it was her, but hope we answered enough for her to give her a little feedback.
Right. And I think that's important. Like first date, first meeting, you really are showing this person who you are, not like here I am, love it or leave it. No, it's just because you're gonna be doing the same with them.
Yeah.
You may not, honey. Daddy's
we could say the presentation love language is one of the first ones that comes.
Yeah, because it's inherent to that first meeting. Yeah.
All right. She said great response. Right. So there, I think we covered it before. So good.
Great. One other point, and then we'll wrap up, because we really would love to. We'll be hopping on next week as well. But unless there's not any other questions that come in, one other point that I took away. So you gave an example of someone who presented their fiance to their family in a manner that highlighted a lot of the fiance's past, which this fiance had grown and changed. He was not the man that he had been. And for whatever reason, the fiance felt she needed to tell her family, well, he went through all this.
Yeah.
And now he's not that guy anymore. But I will say, here's my response to that. And I'm curious what you think, as someone who's steeped in family systems as well. One, I felt it was inappropriate boundaries with the family, that she felt the family needed to know all this backstory. Because to me, when someone has passed and they've dealt with their past and they've made amends and they've asked for forgiveness, if that's what they needed to do, that's in the past. This is over. So I felt that it was an individuation of family of origin issue, that she had lack of boundaries with her family.
No, you're totally right. And this won't surprise you, but her family was extremely high-powered, very indifferent and non-engaged authoritarian style.
Ooh.
And so she was very nervous bringing guys home. It never went well. And now she'd made this decision, and they'd supported it. And I think it was nerves as much as anything in family systemic, where she's like, I just got to get all this out.
Yeah.
So they know that we're being authentic and we love each other. But obviously he was devastated. They did recover and repair, and they're happily married. So
good.
It's a great example because it was pretty extreme.
Yeah, it was when you described it. So yeah, so anyone who listens tomorrow, would love to hear your thoughts too on that, because it's really, I love your clinical examples, Elliott. They're so helpful, because I know that we can talk in theory, but when we get those examples, and so big thanks to your clients who have allowed you, who've given you permission to, obviously anonymously, but tell their stories, because there's just no better way to learn than to go, oh wait, I see myself in that story, or I can get where that happened.
Yeah, and just so the listeners know, as soon as I know there's something likely to use, I ask them, sometimes right in the middle of the session, and every single one of them come to me through other public ministry or professorial work or Dr. Karen podcast. So then it makes sense. So it's linear.
Yeah, no, it's a real blessing. It really is.
Says hello over there. There she is on the Insta Live.
Well, guess what? Hello. We got both significant others. Both spouses showed up at the same time.
There's Dan over there. Right.
Yeah. He's getting loved on. Can you see? Am I doing a good job with the...
Well,
no, wait. Where is
yeah,
it?
Dan didn't know the first 15 minutes of this live was all about him.
Oh, my gosh. We told so many stories, honey. Yeah. Yeah. From, yeah, wait.
In our courting days?
Yeah, you got to go, Dan, from some of the folks in the community. Yeah. So I'm waving. Any last questions for anybody? We've gone about 40 minutes. We like to keep these not so long because I know that you guys got dinner to make and all those sorts of things, but we really just want to thank you for being a part of the community, for listening to the podcast. We are doing a Love Languages book giveaway. All that we ask is you rate and review on Apple Podcasts. It's super easy. It takes about literally 30 seconds just to give us 5 stars, please. And then a quick little sentence of like, love the podcast or super helpful or whatever that is. And then screenshot it and then post it in your stories and tag me. And then you will be entered to win the 5 Love Languages book and a couple Love and Life little freebies in addition. And yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see some of you that are frequent flyers in the Love and Life community, and we are really excited for our partnership and our collaboration to continue to bring you guys information that's grounded in psych research, psychotherapy, and biblical truth to help you align your mind, your body, and your spirit. Elliott, any parting words for everyone?
Well, what time? One of the listeners just asked what time it gets released tomorrow.
I think Tim's loading it up, so it should be first thing tomorrow
Okay.
morning.
Yeah, I think we'd love their feedback because these are 2 love languages that aren't in Dr. Chapter 5. And so we'd love to hear any responses. And if there's a call for more question and answer, we'd love to do it. And just appreciate everybody watching and listening.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
See you later. Going to eat.
Bye.
Bye-bye.